which are unique in this performance contracting model. One thing to keep in mind is that performance contracting, because it's about the performance, it's technology agnostic and it's capital agnostic. So the idea is that once you're aligned around performance, you're really bringing in whatever technology is cost effective and working, and whatever capital. It's not like you're making money on the capital, you're making money through performance. And so, when you're looking in California, one of the wonderful benefits in California is the utilities on-bill financing program, and those are a great source of capital. Some states and other even municipal utilities have supported financing, but that 0% on bill is a very nice kind of capital, and it's for municipalities. It's got a 10-year life, which can give you more window to create savings and have a deeper retrofit. And now the caps have gone up, so there's really a very nice source of capital available for municipal projects. And the fact that the investment is repaid on the customer's bill is something that can ease the sort of the approval requirements and the procurement requirements of a municipality, because it really is budget neutral. This is coming in at or under the historical utility bill, and and that can be a nice budget neutral way to kind of get some projects done. With a guaranteed and insured approach standing behind that pay for performance, you can have that payment guaranteed. So that just strengthens that argument that this is really budget neutral and isn't something that needs to necessarily get bogged down in a procurement process. And an interesting thing, just when you're thinking about that focus on performance, there is a built-in incentive around balancing the cost of the equipment going in and the long-term performance and longevity of that equipment going in. And so, when you're talking about a performance-based model, there's really very little. There's no incentive, it's disincentive for the contractor to inflate the cost of anything going in. It's really a matter of balancing the cost of the equipment that's going in with its ability to perform and stay in service for the period of the agreement. So there is that kind of built-in balance that is implied in the model. So when you're looking at just to somewhat summarize and look at what would you look for in a performance model, some of the key success factors are this transparency, a shared source of performance data, and transparent reporting of that data is a really important part of knowing that you're getting what you expect and that everything is kosher. And sharing of benefits is another thing. That's another kind of hallmark of that alignment around creating that performance. If both parties are benefiting from that performance, there's just an alignment around making sure that happens and persists over time, and that the project works for everybody. So that kind of sharing is a key. A consistency in the technology across a portfolio. If you're in a municipality and have a number of different buildings, it can be, some of these technologies come with platforms that are kind of make buildings easier to operate and make the information easier to aggregate and digest. So I'd say that's one of the things that you should look for. And having a long-term arrangement is key. That's really kind of inherent in the model, but having that long-term relationship and having really all the costs and everything covered under that performance just keeps everybody aligned around performance. So that's another key. And one, as I mentioned before, the presence of performance insurance is a very big deal. It's kind of this trust but verify. When you talk about a performance-based approach, that it's really reliant on the entity, an entity doing it, and having insurance standing behind that service provider just gives you that sense that it's not only the person you're talking to, but if there's insurance standing behind it, there's somebody who has vetted that approach and has put their capital there standing behind the engineering estimates. So that's one of the things that can really be it's a hallmark of a more sophisticated approach and something that can give you assurance as to the outcomes. So I will talk a little bit. I can break a little bit there, Carrie. I know you had said, I don't know if you want to stop, if you've got questions, or if I should press on, but I can talk a little bit now about the PG&E program that encompasses some of these concepts.
Sure. We don't have any questions yet from our attendees, but maybe one question is if you can kind of run through maybe an example. Maybe you'll run through it later, or maybe that's something the city of Fresno will get into, but maybe an example of how you would, I have a building or several buildings that I want to, let's say, make more energy efficient, to put PV on, put some EV chargers and things like that. What is the basic process of, as far as the savings from the EE and how that works on that side?
Yeah, yeah, sure. This is the fine time for me to speak to that, and Summer can probably speak to that as well from the city's point of view. But the way that we really work, as just a very granular example, and it's probably a good time to do this before I get into the higher level program. But we would really come into to any site. We would look at its historical usage, both gas and electric, over the last 12 months. And we would also pursue a facility survey. It's not exactly an ASHRAE 1 audit, but it's something a little bit like that that's focused on some of the particular technologies that we'd be putting in. So with those two pieces of information, and this is typical of what you'd see with other performance contracting. So with those two pieces of information, we would put together a proposal, and the proposal would really be structured, and I'm going to go forward now. So this top slide here, which is how it works. The proposal would be structured to say, okay, your current utility spend, on average, we took all of last year, we divided by 12 and averaged it out. That is a fixed payment that a facility would make to the performance contractor. So and this is really describing the MESA approach. So with that payment, that becomes sort of the budget for what's going in and the service that's provided. So the contractor would come and put equipment in, and equipment that would lower that building's utility spend. So that gap is that you see on the lower right. That gap is really the gap where all of the performance is created and used in part to repay the equipment investment. It's used to pay a service fee to oversee the facility and continue to manage the facility in this way that we're describing, that uncovers many of the benefits and helps the savings persist. And out of that is created a bonus pool that's shared between the contractor and the site. And so that really, that what I'm describing here would encompass, when you look at that bonus pool, the many things that are brought to the table here are 0% on-bill financing, things like peak day pricing, and the ADR incentives that come along with that, which is significant. They're typically custom incentives that are available through programs that are controls based and are managed over time. So that those are typically bringing in not just deemed incentives, which are good, but they're a little bit more based on specific equipment. These are really custom incentives that are based on measured savings and engineering, and they tend to be more lucrative. So that's really where that bonus pool is built and shared with the customer, and that one of the things that can happen is that bonus pool can become a source of future funding for other programs, and that's really where that can be cycled back and can create a funding source for a municipality. So, and the program there that I'm describing would exist over some period of time, because that really is where a lot of the benefit comes, is over managing a building over time. So that would be an important feature of that kind of arrangement. So so just with that specific background, I will describe a little bit about the PG&E's Managed Energy Program, and it's a program that we're the third-party implementer of that program, and it's really targeting very much this kind of topic of having an ability to put in controls and communication, managing a building, and having a pay-for-performance approach to the customer that is in place over time, and where the persistence of that efficiency is really the source of much of the benefit. So when we are working with sites, and I was just kind of describing the way the model works, in terms of the technology that we're working with, we are typically putting in a building management system in a building that hasn't historically had one, and that's a tremendous source of the benefit. We work with HVAC fan and compressor retrofits that help the HVAC run in more than just kind of an on and off mode. It helps the unit modulate itself and learn over time about how the building heats up and cools down, and it can operate not just 100% and 0%, but 75 or 66 or whatever works. Lighting retrofits are part of the program, smart thermostats, and a sensor and control package that reads power usage and also takes in information about occupancy and temperature. So this is really where the building management system is able to receive data from inside the building and speak to things inside the building, and also receive data from outside the building, weather data about the grid and maybe grid events, things like that, and that all of that comes together to help the building be managed more efficiently and the equipment to run more efficiently, and much of this benefit, as I said, comes from working over time. And so there's this program is a 5-year program with continuing commissioning and oversight. And things like demand response are included within that. And to your point, Carrie, once the building has an installation like this in it, it's managed, it's got a lower peak. You understand the interval data, the usage of the building over the course of a year and seasons, and that's really where when you talk about EV charging or solar or storage, that data is critical to right-sizing that new installation and being sure it's always efficiency first. You're always better off doing that. But having that data helps other solution providers be able to come in with additional technology, and that's something that, as I said, we're really looking at in the near future, incorporating some of these other technologies in buildings that we're working in. And once you have that building intelligence, you're kind of in a much better position. So I kind of talked about the managed energy services agreement. Another performance-based contract is an energy services agreement. So in the second type of agreement, the customer would continue to pay their bill, and there would be this measurement of achieved savings over the course that could be reported monthly, and maybe at some periodic interval. There would be a sharing of that measured savings, and it is that's another way to go about this. It can involve more paperwork and can involve just a review of the methodology behind that, because the customer would then be invoiced for that savings, and so there's just a little more background and back office that happens there. So I think that's really that's my presentation, and I think I don't know if you have other questions or if Summer is ready to go. I know we've been working with Jose and Summer at the City of Fresno for some time, so I'm excited to have you guys as part of this. And you know, this is one. A lot of the work that we've been doing and the approach that we're taking is really informed very much by your expertise. So we appreciate it.
Okay, we do have one question here, and maybe you can help answer that. So the question is related to the performance period. So what is the period for the performance, period, for which the customer pays the ESCO? Is it like 5 years, 10 years? Are there variations on that? Maybe there's something that's typical.
Yeah, there are variations, but for what we do, it's 5 years, and it's really there's no payment to the ESCO, but there's an arrangement for 5 years where there's a shared there's an agreement to share that savings, and at the end of that 5 years, all of the equipment goes to the municipality or to the site owner, and all of the savings go to the site owner. So that so at that point, there's going to be some history of reported savings, and the municipality will kind of benefit from all of that at that point.
Yep. Hi, Maria. This is Dennis. For benefit of everybody out there, Dennis Quinn. I work with Maria Fields, and so I've been kind of listening through. One of the items I just wanted to clarify a little bit is the municipalities have the ability to have their zero interest loans, for instance, up to 10 years. And so what that means is you can spread it out over a longer period, which means more savings can be generated over the course of that. So it does provide, to the extent that the city or municipality wants it, you can extend that ESCO arrangement to a longer term to provide that same kind of underwriting and support for that, or keep it to the 5 years. I just wanted to just highlight that it could be extended to the term of the underlying capital commitments that are available for the particular measures going in. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a good point. And under that would create additional savings during that 10-year time frame, if that wasn't clear. So that would be a way to bring more money back in the near term.
Okay. That's great. So we can. There's no more other questions right now, so we can move on, and maybe we can field some more questions at the end of Fresno's presentation.
Perfect. All right, Summer, you're up.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Good morning. As Carrie and Maria stated, my name is Summer Cecil, and I'm the staff assistant with the Sustainable Division of the City of Fresno. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for allowing me to fill in for my division manager. And it's been a pleasure working with you, Maria, as well, and learning about the pay for performance model and performance contracting. So just as a little overview, today I'll be talking to you a little bit about where the current city and community efforts have been in terms of sustainability and its goals as a city. Give you a little bit of background as far as the Central Valley Energy Tune-Up Program and what its purpose has been in obtaining those goals. And then I'll delve into the city's perspective of the pay-for-performance model and the opportunities and challenges we've seen associated with such a model, and kind of why it's been attractive to us as a municipality. And thank you, Maria, for running my show. Next slide, please. So in the most recent general plan update of the City of Fresno, there were several sustainability goals that were identified for both the city's municipal locations, but as well as city as a whole, including the residential and non-residential sectors. Primarily, the city committed to a measured greenhouse gas reduction as required and in line with Assembly Bill 32, the California Global Warming Act of 2006. And that was a call to action to reduce greenhouse gases to 1990s levels by 2020. So in order to reach that commitment to AB 32, we have increased our renewable energy utilization and research through our solar systems, microgrids, biomethane. With each new opportunity, though, of course, it presents its own challenges for us as a municipality. And so coupled with that, with the renewable energy, we're also interested in reducing our city peak electrical loads, primarily through energy efficiency and resource conservation. And we're also looking at electrical load shifting to help us accomplish that. Like I stated, these technologies such as the EV charging, the battery storage for our solar arrays, they certainly do bring their own unique challenges and opportunities. Everything is scary or daunting the first time around, so the City of Fresno really relies on the Sustainable Division to fully vet these new opportunities and bring best value to the city as a whole. And so although we do have limited funding and limited staff available to implement or advance these programs, we look to our local government partnerships as well as various consultants to assist us in carrying the load. Next slide, please. So in order to begin on its journey, the City of Fresno, in partnership with PG&E, initiated the Central Valley Energy Tune-Up Program in July of 2009, which was primarily focused in the City of Fresno. What the program did was offer energy assessments to the residential and non-residential sector to identify energy efficiency opportunities and where these locations were lacking. And the program was rather successful. So in 2013, we shifted our sphere of influence from the City of Fresno to all of the 8 counties within the Central Valley. And again, primarily focused within the residential and non-residential sectors. With those 2 sectors, the first program that developed through Central Valley Energy Tune-Up was the Home Energy Tune-Up. Again, within the 8 counties, through its lifetime, we were able to assess about 22,000 residents. And then the non-residential sector, the Business Energy Tune-Up, we were only within the Fresno County. And within the Fresno County, we were able to assist 400 businesses. And our goal through the Business Energy Tune-Up was to not only educate businesses with energy efficiency, but also to educate business owners in being proactive. And so by learning how to be proactive and identifying and acting on their energy efficiency opportunities, they're able to reap benefits such as the reduced maintenance costs or any unexpected failures. They were able to avoid those. In turn, they increase their profit margin, they increase their building occupancy and marketability, and they really reduce their energy-related risks. And we're able to learn how to adapt to any new peak demand pricing and utility rate shifts. So next slide, please. So in this slide, it's a highlight of the B2 Business Energy Tune-Up Program and what segments of the non-residential sector we served. As you can see, food processing, manufacturing, other municipalities. And what was interesting we found in doing this research and accumulating this data was, in particular, the food processing industry. We show a high level of energy usage for a small number of locations. And so by taking this information, we were able to focus our efforts within those small locations and ultimately aid in the city's overall greenhouse gas reduction goals. Next slide, please. So as I exhibited in the previous slides, the Sustainability Division has been well versed in identifying various opportunities available. And so currently we are evaluating the pay for performance model and seeing what challenges or opportunities we need to vet in order to see if this is an attractive opportunity for the city of Fresno. And primarily, we've noticed a few of the desirable features, primarily being the service structure that we see. Not only is this a holistic approach to energy efficiency upgrades within municipal locations, but it's also a well-monitored approach. And so it takes a burden off of the city's shoulders because there is a third party that is in constant contact with the building and with the improvements that have been made. And so should there be any lapse in performance or any sort of a failure, there is a very short period of time between failure and action, which ultimately leads to the highest savings that we can assume. And secondly, as Maria mentioned, it does overcome some budget constraints. Generally, with the pay for performance models, we're looking at a no out-of-pocket cost and utilizing a lot of the on-bill financing. And so, you know, free is always the best price for a municipality. And so that aspect of the pay for performance model is very lucrative to us. And so lastly, again, as Maria mentioned, the performance contracting really does ease some of the procurement requirements, namely in reducing time from the project inception to the project implementation and realize savings. If we can cut out part of the red tape, part of the bureaucracy in terms of things like requests for proposals and that sort of thing, we are able to more quickly realize our actual savings and show the benefit to the city as well as, you know, to the community. Another aspect that is of interest is the long-term contracting with the performance alignment. By having kind of these two in conjunction with each other, the city's put a little bit more at ease that it's going to receive a quality product, and it increases the city's trust to move forward with the project, knowing that there is a somebody measuring the performance and guaranteeing that we will be realizing the savings that was told to us in the beginning. And by knowing also that we have the guarantee by the contractor that they will stand behind their work, it ensures that we're providing the best value to the city and really eases, again, the procurement issues in finding the balance between the cost and performance. And so that is very desirable. And then lastly, kind of having these smart buildings, it allows us to adjust to future shifts in demand and shifts in utility rates that are generally unknown. And so it allows for a smarter approach to our energy savings. By having this measured performance, it helps us account not only for the good work that we're trying to do, but it also allows us to easily know and publicize our accomplishments and gives us the greatest transparency to our constituents. And it's really, what they ask for. They ask us to be good stewards of their community, and by following a pay-for-performance or performance contracting method, we're able to deliver on that more easily. And so currently we are again, under review of the pay-for-performance model, and it is looking very desirable for the city of Fresno. And with that, I believe that is the end of my presentation.
All right, thank you very much, Summer.
Right.
One question I may have, this is probably towards you, Maria. So Summer brought up a good point as far as being able to adapt to some of the changing conditions out there, like time of use rates. And so if you were to do a performance contract, let's say for 5 years, and you wanted to make an adjustment to that, let's say I want to make sure I'm taking advantage of time of use on demand response side, or a new technology comes out, like what is the ability to adjust that contract? Let's say there's a magical new way to do lighting, super LED or something, and I want to put that into my building. Am I stuck with that, or can I adjust that contract?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, and inherent to the model, because we're there to make sure that performance happens. So as there's a shift in, say, peak day pricing is a perfect example. It could be that a particular site that we're either in a 5 or 10 year arrangement with, it may be that they're no longer best for that peak day pricing. Maybe they should shift to time of use. So that's really inherent in everything we do. We sometimes describe ourselves as like an energy concierge. So when we're there with that expertise and with the tactics to make it happen, and then we have that performance alignment. So we're not going to sit and wait while something like a new tariff comes along without evaluating what's the best thing for the customer. And I think even along with that, I'd say maybe 70% of the projects that we go through have some additional installation during the 5 years, and that it can be anything from parking lot lighting to some addition or new technology that comes along, and that's something that we would change something out or get somebody signed up for a new program. And we've had some interesting ones, even in California, when you look at the really how much the grid is changing. They're sometimes looking for daytime uses of electricity, and will compensate people accordingly, because there's so much solar on the grid at times in California that there can be a need actually to really shift. And everybody's been talking about that a little bit. Summer just talked about that smart grid is really going to be so much more dynamic, that these sources of value will come and go at different times. And so having somebody aligned to share performance and with the expertise to make it happen is part of the contract, and that would be kind of part and parcel of what we would do is bring additional opportunities.
Yeah, this is Dennis. I can maybe add a little bit. Is that because as an example, we happen to work as one of your ESCO options as you look forward to determining how an ESCO model may work for your city. We operate in other jurisdictions and other areas where there's more open markets, and I think it's probably not out of the realm, and in the coming over the course of a 5 or 10 year term, the California market, we believe, to Maria's point, that price signals are going to be coming out that reflect a very evolving marketplace. It's going to allow more than tariff. It's going to allow you or a municipality potentially the option to procure their commodity more in an open market an environment, and that may not be that many years out. So having strong data, having control on your use, really allows you to then shape a procurement solution that can save materially. If you have the ability to operate during certain times, we can really work, your partner can really work, or should be able to be in a position to really work procurement options so that you can just shape things much more effectively for the constraints of your building.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. And then we have a few more questions. So for the OBF, the on-bill financing, how does that work in coordination with the financing through the ESCO? Is the city invoiced separately for the ESCO financing, or are those packaged up together?
Yeah, that's an ideal source of financing, and so I think certainly for us as an option, we would use that OBF money, and in terms of the way that we would actually start a project, we do have some construction phase capital that we can bring in to help get a project started, but that the OBF money is certainly advantageous for everybody. And so that is that's the capital we would use up to the limit that we can use it, and that payment would then go onto the customer's monthly bill, and that's vetted by PG&E in terms of being neutral in terms of the budget impact.
So mechanically under the MESA model, which Maria had shown you, the municipality would pay the amount of their historical usage. Then the new utility bill would reflect a lower usage from the equipment that's installed. The OBF amount would be added on to that bill, and that bill and that OBF amount would be paid out of the customer payment. And the leftover amount, there would be an extra amount after the cost of just oversight and providing the software and providing the actual service. The balance of it goes into a kind of a capital, a shared savings bucket. So it works quite well on the OBF. It's really well suited, and in our particular case, all of our projects incorporate the OBF. So we basically just take over payment of utility bill and the capital and guarantee payment of both of those, and then the customer just pays us the so to speak, the kind of the fixed monthly payment that's established through historical use.
Okay. We have two more questions here, and I think they're pretty related. So this question is actually directed at Summer, and then I'll kind of get into the other question that kind of, I think, summarizes this. So basically, to Summer, is the city worried that, maybe using the ESCO model might kind of prevent them from, taking advantage fully of some of the incentives that would be passed on directly to the city, or like under-reporting some of the incentives amount that they can claim? And then kind of the second question on that, we talked a lot about the upsides of performance contracting, but what are maybe some of the challenges or trade-offs that, maybe Fresno is talking about, or the city has explored a little bit, and kind of thinking about performance contracting?
Yeah, of course. So I'm going to utilize my phone a friend. The division manager has joined me, if he doesn't mind taking the question.
Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Jose with the City of Fresno. So Carrie, those are really good questions, and quite honestly, we are in the midst of really evaluating that through our process currently. Yes, there is the potential of obviously not benefiting 100%, since some of the funding is going to pay on some of this contracting. But we also need to compare the opposite side of that coin and evaluate the value of having eyes on our equipment, and instead of dealing with emergencies, unexpected emergencies, and inability to control effectively and efficiently the operation, those type of things are things that we are currently in the process of evaluating. So that's I think the best answer that I can provide at this time. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
This is Dennis. I could also add that a city or municipality can choose, when they're evaluating the potential for an ESCO arrangement, is to be very explicit about that, is to identify and make sure that it's transparent, all available rebates and incentives that may be out there, to ensure that their partner pursues that, and that there's an understanding and clarity of what those amounts are and how they'll be passed through to either reduce capital or to otherwise be identified clearly in terms of where the dollars are flowing on that. The transparency can be provided, and it's, I think, the municipality, if they're evaluating that, should demand that from their ESCO partners when they're considering that and looking at options, to just make sure that that's stated and clear, that each dollar needs to be identified where it's going.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dennis. Thanks, Jose. And so maybe one last question that I have. Can you, Dennis or Maria, maybe talk about kind of this, where the state is going as far as, we mentioned small and medium business, and we're kind of exploring the municipal section, where the kind of the CPUC stands on, providing this through incentives, via the utilities.
Sure. Maria, do you want me to tackle that one?
Dennis? Yeah.
Sure. Yes, because
I
get the opportunity to sit through a workshop. So PG&E, for instance, there's a number of workshops going on, and to the point, I kind of sometimes refer to it as the alphabet soup of the Assembly bills and Senate bills that are now out there to try to drive sustainability initiatives in the state of California. What it's done is it's prompting quite an overview and a reassessment of the whole efficiency and DER sustainability models for the states, especially the IOUs. So we are, the IOUs are in the midst of changing how they've operated programs in the past. The commission has encouraged them, and so have through legislation, to move to a performance-based model. In other words, incentives will be available. But what they want to do is to shift less dollars towards a different and redundant sets of eyes looking at the same programs and same results, to really utilizing the technologies that are out there, which are smart meters. The state's been deployed, all of the sites have been deployed with smart meters to utilize that data to actually measure what's really happening. And so they are in the process right now of each of the IOUs are looking to provide, it's almost a two-stage process now. It's an RFA, request for abstracts, and a request for proposals, where third-party implementers are going to be proposing solutions across major segments, including the public sector, where implementers will be proposing performance-based models. It'll be a combination. Some of it will be outreach and dollars for origination and information sharing and training, and the rest of it's going to be for actually measuring what you're delivering from the sites in terms of the measures that are being installed and moving. The closer you get towards a performance-based model, the more interested I think the state and the utilities are in looking at those models right now. So right now, I would say we're in the midst through spring and summer of really going through that process, and many of the cities may be beginning to see that. Whether it's through the utility processes or even through their own initiatives, if they may be looking at their own models through community choice aggregation, community choice energy. The initiatives are similar. The vehicles may be a little different in how you get there.
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much, Dennis. I don't see any more questions that we have right now, so I think we will wrap this up for today. So thank you very much, Maria, Dennis, Summer, Jose. I really appreciate you taking this time for this hour that we had here. And I'd like to thank everyone for participating in the webinar. I hope you found it, informative, worthwhile, and valuable. It sounds like there's some changes that are coming ahead, so I just wanted to make sure folks were aware of what some of the options are in the future. And just as a reminder, the webinar is recorded, and a PDF will be sent out to all the registrants probably the end of this week or early next week, and this will conclude the webinar today. So thank you again for joining us this afternoon, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, Carrie, and thanks everybody.
You.
Yeah, bye.